Gorgeous human. So I'm going to show you how to format your Google Spreadsheets. And I'm going to use this as an example. So this is a spreadsheet I did for my coaching cohort that I learnt from through Authentic Education. So just don't worry if it doesn't make sense to you. But essentially what we're going to learn how to do is to set this up so that when it cooperates, we can type things into here. Now, what you'll notice is basically what this is designed to do is to help people realize what they need to work on as a high priority. So if I type in a 1 there, you'll see it changes color to a green. If I type in a 5, however, it's like, hey, we need to work on this. And so what I did was format it so it was different colors. So we'll look at that. The next thing we'll look at is this tick box situation. Things, I'm going to put that there. And you can tick the box off and just know it does certain things. Just going to go along and fill this out. When you double click on here, how do you get it to so it enters the date? How do you create a drop down menu and so forth? And you'll notice that as I scroll down, this stays put. This is called freezing a cell. So I'm just going to show you that as well. So what we'll do is going to start with a new sheet. So you're going to have a sheet like this. Now just to save time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and just paste this top bit in here, just so it's there. All right. Yeah, I'll just do that. Now, just know at the top here, you can go up here and format it. So, different colors. Sorry, that's bold or not bold. This is what color text you would like. This is the background color. So you see how this kind of has a creamy color. That's what that is. You can change the font if you wish. So what I'm going to do as well, because as you can see here, I don't actually have any extra cells after here. So the way that you can do it is you can click on the G, and for Mac, it's Command Shift Arrow, and it'll highlight all of these things. I don't know what it is for PC, I'm sorry, but you'll work it out. And then what it does is it hides all those extra bits and bobs because we don't need those. Okay. Now I'm just going to space this out a bit just so it looks a little bit nicer and so forth. Now, the next thing I personally like to do is freeze the cell. So what I want to do is I want to go up here and go insert, for view. I want to freeze the top 2 rows. So what that means is you see here, as I scroll down, that stays put. It doesn't actually move. Now, the other thing to bear in mind is I could potentially decide, as I've done here, is to freeze this first column. So what that means, if I had anything additional along here, this would always stay here. So the way we do that is we highlight this column here, view, freeze, and we're going to go to the first column. So let's just say we had, heaps of rows down here. It actually keeps this row, or this column, I should say, stable and doesn't move. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to skip this for a second and come back to here because I'll do the easy things first. What we want to do is to go data. So what I've done is I've highlighted the whole row by clicking on the column. My goodness, by clicking on the C, I go data validation. I go here and I say checkbox. And then all these checkboxes will turn up. Okay. I'm just going to delete that top one. Now, the next thing we're doing very similar. You can close this down a little bit, arrow it. Again, I'm clicking on the D to highlight that whole column. I'm going to data validation, and I'm going to say is a date. I'm going to click save. So what that means is when I double click on this, I can now select the date. Now, these two have very similar settings in the sense that you'll notice here they're both drop downs. So if I go back to the original, let me just untick this for a second, is you'll notice it has a drop down and this has a drop down as well. Okay. So what we're doing here is highlighting the B. So that's highlighting the whole row. We go to data validation, and we're going from a list of items and you'll just say whatever you want. So this was a scale of 1 to 5. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just making sure you have commas in between, and then click save. Then what happens is these little downward arrows show up, and then I can select the number. Now, the technique, what you'll notice is that I'm actually having to write out the whole thing. So like you'll notice here, I wrote like 10 different things down. You could do this one of two ways. You could either highlight this and go data validation from list and write out like whatever, monkeys, apples, whatever your thing is. If you have a lot of different variables, however, what I would recommend to do instead is this. Whoops. Go insert one column to the right. And I would write down your different variables. You might have monkeys. My goodness, let's spell monkeys right. Apples, bananas, pears, dogs, cat, and so forth. Now, what we're going to do is go, okay, so the technique here. So this is option 2 to get the drop down menu. Data validation, and see how it says here from range? Going to click this button here and highlight it. And then click OK. And what will happen is it'll pull in from there. Now, let's say you don't want to have this. You can hide it. I'll show you how to do that in a moment. Let's say you're like, hang on, I don't want apples there. You just simply replace apples with oranges. And what you'll notice is this will dynamically update. Okay. And then to hide this, just click on the G, right click, and just go hide column. And just because it's hidden doesn't mean it's not working. So those are the two ways that you can actually update the spreadsheet and that particular drop down formula. You can either do it from a range and hide it, or you can just enter it by going the data and the data validation from the list of items and then listing them out. Okay. Now, this is the bonus stuff. So say, for instance, I have a 5 priority. So I want to really make sure I'm prioritizing that. What we do is we highlight this column and go format, conditional formatting. Now, you'll see all these things here. This is a bit crazy. I've kind of already done this. But let's start from the start. I want to say add another rule. And what I'm saying is any 5 in this column, if it is equal to the number 5, I want to change it so that it is highlighted red, like that. Okay. And then I would go, okay, any number that is equal to the number 4, I want to highlight that in orange. And so then if I put a number 4 here, you'll see it highlights in orange. And you just go through that with all the variables. Okay. Now you'll see 3, because I haven't got a rule for it yet, it's not highlighting. So again, I click on the B at the top, add a rule, where I'll go any number that is equal to 3. Whoopsies. I want to make it a yellow. And that is how you start to format your own spreadsheet. Make sure you just change by double clicking at the bottom and just rename me. Now, when it comes to sharing, here's a hot tip. If you want someone to make a copy of this and not change to the original, you go File, Share. Take a moment to load. Anyone with the link can view, you say copy. Now, when you go to paste this link, see where it says up to edit? You want to change that, delete all that, and just say copy. And then what will happen is it will prompt you to make a copy. Say it's, would you like to make a hot copy? So that is the link you give any clients or customers if you want them to make a copy because you've made a template.
Let me know how you go and can't wait to see what you create.